Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the final Universal Monsters film that I'm reviewing for this Halloween horror movie month, and it's The Invisible Man. So I originally read the original H.G. Wells novel like quite a few years ago, because that story always interested me about like the whole story of Jack Griffin like taking a serum and becoming the Invisible Man. And I was never really attached to a lot of the H.G. Wells's stories, but the Invisible Man always kind of grabbed at me. I didn't really see the 2020 remake, although it's still on my bucket list. It was just never that high up. But when I did read those books about behind the scenes of the classic Universal monsters at my school library, the Invisible Man was like, I'm not gonna say that the Invisible Man always intrigued me, but I did kind of like the whole design of the Invisible Man, where like he's wrapped up in these bandages and gauze, with like a trilby or fedora hat with a trench coat and sunglasses or like dark glasses. So I decided to finally check out that movie and see how well it was. And well, like I said, I think that it's my favorite one of the five Universal films that I've watched. Like if it's not my favorite, then it's tied with The Wolfman. So with starting off with the things that I liked about this film, like I mean, for one, I thought that Claude Rain was great as the Invisible Man or Jack Griffin. Like, at first, I thought that his acting was a little bit weird because, like, almost go from, like, completely unhinged and wanting to take over the world to, like, wanting to get back together with his girlfriend Flora, I think her name is. But they explained in the movie that that part of the Invisible Man's serum was this drug called monocaine that kind of like alters the brain chemistry and makes you go insane, which I see that as a way of like kind of explaining his behavior and acting. Because at some point he can like just go on a murder spree, and then the next day like he can just do like petty harmless pranks basically that are juvenile. So that's the way I always saw it. That and the fact that some of his dialogue is a little bit weird, but again, I chalked that up to the monocaine. Um, well, the monocaine in the serum, but um, point is, I thought he was great. He even has this really maniacal, like diabolical laugh when he's committing a crime or when he's killing someone. And I just thought that was really cool. Going hand in hand with his acting, I thought the special effects for the Invisible Man were great. Like like I honestly think that what they did to make it believable that that Jack Griffin was invisible still holds up today. I mean, yes, some of it is like obviously pulled by wires, especially with how like objects are just floating and like it seems like they're staggering a bit in midair, but it still looks good, especially for when for the time that it was made. There are a couple times where it looks like the clothing that's in midair looks a little bit too bright, which I don't know when exactly they started using green screen, but I'm guessing they might have done something similar to that back then. But either way, it still looks very good for a movie of that age. The rest of the cast is pretty good. Kemp is great. I can't remember who plays him. Flora is all right. Dr. Cranley, he's pretty good, which I'm gonna have to look this up after I do this review, but I think that, if I'm not mistaken, the guy who plays Dr. Cranley is the same person who played Clarence in It's a Wonderful Life, and that guy is always a joy to watch. Um, the chief of police and like basically everyone on the police force is all right. And one thing that I still need to mention is that if anything, this movie is a bit of like a horror comedy kind of, because like there is definitely some horror elements in here, um like just the scenes alone where Jack Griffin is taking off his glasses, as well as like his fake nose, and taking off the bandages. Like when you first see like how he has no eyes or no nose and it's just held together by bandages, that actually looks pretty creepy. Or even later in the film where he's not wearing glasses but he does have the bandages and there's just no eyes, there's still a little bit of creepiness to there. And in addition to that, like, out of the 5 Universal Monsters movies that I've seen now, uh, I'd say that this one is the most brutal. Like, despite not having any blood, like I think this film has the highest body count. Like, there's that first kill where he bashes a police chief's skull in with a stool. Again, no blood. There's a few people that he sends falling to the deaths over a cliff, which it's explained a little bit later that he killed all 20 of them. And he causes a train to derail and also crash off a cliff, which is fully shown on screen. Which again, another great effect. So, and just another thing that makes me like this film is that out of the 5 monster movies that I've seen now, this is the one where it actually feels like the stakes are like raised really high, because like unlike Dracula or the Mummy, who is after this one specific woman, or Frankenstein, who's just like a childlike beast, or the Wolfman, who again is another like animalistic beast. Like this guy is like an insane human who found the secret of turning invisible, and he wants to use it to take over the world. And that's what made this movie so interesting for me, and honestly, again, makes this like one of the more intense movies that I've seen from a Universal Classic Monster series. That is, um, but oh, and going back to the effects, like even at the very end when the Invisible Man gets defeated and he's lying on the hospital bed and like he slowly turns human, like even that simple effect of him slowly turning visible, where it first shows his skull and then it shows like the muscles kind of like stretch over it, and then like the skin becoming visible and showing like a bald head, and then eventually completing and like actually showing all his features and his hair. Again, another great effect, especially for a movie from that time. So, unfortunately, despite everything that I said, where I was basically gushing over this film, there are a few things that I thought was a little bit weird. Like for one, when Jack Griffin goes to the bar, restaurant or inn or whatever, and he originally gets a room. There's that one bartender lady named Mrs. Hall, I think, and I just feel like her acting was just way too corny, even for a movie from this film, from this year, from the year it was made. She was just like way too over the top. Her screeching was just was just grating to me, and I just feel like she was the worst acted role in the film, but that's just me. I was going to mention the dialogue that they chose for Jack Griffin, because like there's at one point where Jack Griffin like meets Kemp and like coerces him into helping him, and he says something along the lines of like, if you betray me, like, I'm strong and I'll strangle you, or something like that. And he just says it so deadpan and it's so weird. And I was going to be on the fence about that, but again, I'm gonna chalk that up to the whole Monocaine line about it like driving someone insane. However, at the very end of the film, when the Invisible Man is defeated by the police seeing his footsteps in the snow, so they shoot at him, and like he falls over. Um, there's no blood, and earlier it was very specifically mentioned that that after eating, the Invisible Man either has to hide or cover himself up because the food inside him is visible until it's digested, and that makes me think like, well, if the police shot him, then shouldn't the blood be visible on him, right? I mean, I know it's kind of unfair to mention this, but like in the first episode of The Boys that came out, when Bully Butcher is fighting Translucent, who is basically the Invisible Man but a superhero, like the way that the way that Billy ends up fighting him is like he spits his blood onto him, and that way he can see him, that way he can fight him and kick his ass. And just again, like I don't want to be too hard on this film because it came out in 1933, I think, but for this movie to say like, oh yeah, the Invisible Man, like if he eats food, like it'll be visible in his tummy, so he has he has to hide it. But then at the very end of the film, like apparently his wounds are untreatable because like they're invisible, and also like you can't see the blood on him because apparently it's invisible, which again makes no sense at all, because if the food is visible, why isn't his blood after he's shot? But that's just me. Other than that, this movie was great. There's not really much else I can say about this, but like if I had to rank these films based on the five that I've seen by now, I honestly probably would say that The Invisible Man, I like it more than The Wolfman, but that's by a very close margin. So I'd say like Invisible Man, Wolfman, probably Frankenstein, Dracula, and The Mummy. And that's not saying that like that any one of them are bad. They're pretty decent to say the least. I've already said my thoughts on The Mummy and why it's my least favorite. But you know what? They're still all great movies for when they came out. And having said all that, that's my final thoughts on the original Universal Classic Monsters. And maybe in the future I'll cover more films. Like I still got The Bride of Frankenstein that came with this box set, so eventually I'll take a look at that one. But until then, that's the end of this review, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another horror movie that is not connected to the Universal Monsters. Bye, everyone.